The Indian sage Patanjali discovered that by stilling the fluctuations of the mind, one can experience a reality that exists beyond the confines of temporal and spatial limitations. He reached levels of enlightenment that few humans have done. Although he passed away, his teachings remain in his Yoga Sutras. How can we do the same as Patanjali and become the highest version of ourselves, free from the constraints of reality? By studying his work, we crack the code to achieve this, and that's what we'll be teaching you today. But before we get to Patanjali's level, it's time to turn to the ancient sages of past civilizations for wisdom, or else we risk disappearing from this plane of existence, time and space. Before we escape the restrictions of time and space, we need to know more about these two universal concepts. The concept of time has long fascinated philosophers, mystics, and scientists alike. It's a force that governs our lives, dictating when we wake, when we work, and when we rest. But what if time, as we understand it, is merely a construct, a veil that conceals a deeper truth? Einstein's words invite us to question the very fabric of our reality, suggesting that time may not be as rigid as we believe. To escape the restrictions of time and space, one must first understand that these limitations are not as concrete as they seem. They are like invisible chains that bind our minds, shaping our perception of reality and keeping us confined within certain boundaries. What if these boundaries are not as solid as society has led us to believe? What if time and space are mere constructs of the mind, created to help us navigate the physical world, but not meant to define the essence of our being? Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher who lived in the 18th century, proposed that time and space are not external realities, but rather forms of intuition, ways in which our mind organizes and makes sense of the world around us. According to Kant, these constructs are necessary for us to experience the material world, but they are not the ultimate truth. They are like lenses through which we perceive reality, and as long as we view life through these lenses, we remain bound by their limitations. Eastern philosophies, particularly those from Hinduism and Buddhism, offer a path to transcend these limitations. In Hinduism, the concept of Maya refers to the illusionary nature of the world, including time and space. Maya creates the sense that we are separate beings moving through a linear timeline, but this is not the ultimate truth. The deeper reality, according to Hindu teachings, is Brahman, the eternal and infinite consciousness that underlies all existence. When we align with Brahman through practices like meditation and self-inquiry, we begin to see beyond the illusion of time and space, experiencing the timeless, spaceless nature of our true self. In African spiritual traditions, time is often seen in a cyclical rather than linear way. For instance, many West African cultures view time as a continuous loop where the past, present, and future are interconnected. The concept of Sankofa in Akan philosophy, for example, emphasizes the importance of looking back to the past to move forward. This cyclical understanding of time allows for a more fluid relationship with the temporal world, where the boundaries of time are not as rigid and the spiritual and physical realms are more closely intertwined. We can better understand these limitations of the mind's perception through the famous allegory of the cave by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. In this allegory, prisoners are chained inside a cave where they can only see shadows cast on the wall in front of them. These shadows are the only reality they know. However, when one prisoner is freed and steps outside the cave, he sees the true world for the first time, the sunlight, the trees, the full spectrum of life that exists beyond the cave. This allegory illustrates how our minds are often trapped within a limited perception of reality, confined by the constructs of time and space. But just as the freed prisoner discovers a new reality, so too can we by expanding our consciousness beyond these limitations. Likewise, mystics throughout history have spoken of the experience of transcending time and space. Sufi mystic Rumi, for example, often wrote about moments of spiritual ecstasy where the boundaries of time dissolved and the soul merged with the eternal. In these moments, the mind is no longer bound by the linear progression of time or the physical dimensions of space. Instead, there is only the present moment, a vast infinite now that holds all of existence within it. And this is also supported by psychological studies that have shown that when people enter deep states of meditation or flow, their perception of time changes. Hours can feel like minutes or vice versa, as the mind becomes absorbed in the present moment. This altered perception is a glimpse into the freedom that lies beyond the ordinary constraints of time and space. It suggests that our experience of reality is far more flexible than we often realize. Historically, the pursuit of escaping these limitations has been central to many spiritual traditions. The ancient Egyptians, for instance, believed in the concept of eternal time, or jet, which existed alongside Neher, the cyclical time of the physical world. Jet represented a state of being beyond the ordinary flow of time, where the soul could exist in its purest, most eternal form. The practices and rituals of the Egyptians were aimed at preparing the soul for this timeless existence after death, but they also hinted at the possibility of experiencing this state while still in the physical body. As we delve deeper into these teachings and practices, we begin to understand that the limitations of time and space are not as fixed as they appear. They are constructs of the mind that can be transcended, allowing us to experience a reality that is far more expansive and infinite than we ever imagined. But how do we, living in a world governed by clocks and calendars, begin to break free from these constraints? Breaking free? Well, here's how everything starts to link together. We learned that the mind has great power in shaping our perception of time. Modern psychology studies have taken this to another level. By focusing on the present moment, we can alter our experience of time, slowing it down or even making it seem irrelevant. This idea echoes the teachings of the Stoic philosopher Seneca, who argued that time is more a product of our thoughts than an external reality. Similarly, in Zen Buddhism, the concept of satori, or sudden enlightenment, represents a moment of clarity where the illusion of time dissolves, revealing the eternal now. This state of consciousness allows one to perceive the world without the distortion of past memories or future anxieties, experiencing life in its purest form. For those seeking to escape the limitations of time and space, you need to create a mindset that transcends the ordinary. This is more than just philosophical ramblings. We're talking about you taking practical steps and exercises that can shift your perception and unlock hidden potentials. And we have uncovered the best ones to get to this level. It's time to go back to the teachings of the sage Patanjali, who reached this incredible level all on his own, simply by practicing these techniques we'll reveal now. The teachings of Patanjali. In his Yoga Sutras, Patanjali spoke of kaivalya, or liberation, as a state of being where one is completely free from the constraints of the material world and the fluctuations of the mind. Kaivalya is the ultimate goal of yoga, representing a profound state of isolation from the illusions of reality, where the soul, or purusha, stands alone in its pure essence, unbound by the body, mind, or emotions. It allows one to transcend the limitations imposed by prakriti, nature, or matter. It is a state of supreme freedom where the individual self is no longer entangled in the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. Instead, the soul experiences its true nature, eternal, unchanging, and infinite. Achieving kaivalya is not merely an intellectual or theoretical understanding. It is a direct experiential realization of the self's separation from the material world. This realization comes through the practice of the 8 limbs of yoga, also described in his sutras. These practices include ethical conduct, yamas, self-discipline, niyamas, physical postures, asanas, breath control, pranayama, withdrawal of the senses, pratyahara, concentration, dharana, meditation, dhyana, and finally the ultimate state of samadhi, where the self merges with the object of meditation, leading to the experience of kaivalya. In samadhi, the practitioner experiences oneness with the object of meditation, whether it is a concept, a deity, or the universal consciousness itself. This state is characterized by a profound sense of timelessness and spacelessness, where the boundaries between the self and the universe dissolve. In this state, the practitioner realizes that the self is not limited by the body or the mind, but is an eternal, infinite being that exists beyond the constraints of time and space. Let's go through each of these one by one so that you can have a better idea of what Patanjali did to escape the limits of time and space. Ethical conduct, or yamas, can be exemplified by practicing ahimsa, non-violence, in everyday interactions, extending kindness not just to others but to oneself, fostering a peaceful internal state. Self-discipline, or niyamas, could be reflected in the commitment to daily meditation, even when it's challenging, as this consistency nurtures inner strength and clarity. Physical postures, or asanas, might be illustrated by the practice of vrksasana, tree pose, which requires balance and focus, grounding the body while elevating the spirit. Breath control, or pranayama, can be seen in the technique of nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, which harmonizes the mind and balances the energies within. Withdrawal of the senses, or pratyahara, could be practiced by spending time in nature, allowing the mind to turn inward, free from the distractions of daily life. Concentration, or dharana, might be embodied in focusing on a single candle flame, training the mind to remain steady and undisturbed. Meditation, or dhyana, can be illustrated by sitting in stillness, observing the flow of thoughts without attachment, gradually deepening the connection with the self. Finally, the ultimate state of samadhi, where the self merges with the object of meditation, could be glimpsed in moments of profound stillness, where the boundaries between the self and the universe dissolve, leading to the experience of kaivalya. Going even further, at the heart of Patanjali's teachings is the concept of chitta vritti nirodha, which translates to the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. These fluctuations, or vrittis, are the thoughts, emotions, and sensory experiences that constantly arise and fall within our consciousness. They keep us tethered to the illusions of time and space, creating the perception of a linear reality that moves from past to future. Patanjali teaches that by calming these mental disturbances through meditation, we can experience the present moment in its purest form, where time ceases to exist and we touch the infinite. Another important teaching of Patanjali is the concept of Ishvara Pranidhana, or surrender to a higher power. This practice involves letting go of the ego's need to control and manipulate reality, and instead trusting in the divine plan. By surrendering to a higher power, we align ourselves with the cosmic order, which operates beyond the limitations of time and space. This surrender allows us to flow with the natural rhythms of the universe, experiencing a sense of ease and harmony that transcends the ordinary experience of time. Patanjali's teachings also emphasize the importance of vairagya, or detachment. This does not mean withdrawing from life or renouncing the world, but rather developing a sense of non-attachment to the things that bind us to the physical realm. By detaching yourself from the desires, fears, and identities that keep us grounded in the material world, we free ourselves to experience the timeless, spaceless reality of our true nature. This detachment allows us to observe the flow of time without being caught up in it, to witness the changes of the world without being affected by them. In this state, we come to realize that our true self is not confined by the physical world, but is a reflection of the infinite consciousness that permeates all of existence. While Patanjali was the most celebrated sage in the realm of escaping the boundaries of time and space, that doesn't mean he was the only successful ones. Lesser-known mystics also explored an alternative technique to escape into the deeper realms of consciousness, but it is so difficult to master that it has been lost. Or it was, until we rediscovered it and studied it for years to bring it to you now. It's the art of spiritual silence. Perform spiritual silence. Spiritual silence is a practice that has been revered across cultures and spiritual traditions as a powerful means of transcending the limitations of time and space. In a world filled with noise and constant distractions, silence becomes a gateway to deeper realms of consciousness, where the illusions of time dissolve and the true nature of reality begins to reveal itself. In the practice of spiritual silence, one withdraws from the external world to connect with the inner self, the essence that lies beyond the hustle of daily life. This silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is an active stillness, a space where the mind can settle and the soul can speak. By quieting the mind, we create the conditions necessary for deeper insights and realizations that are often hidden beneath the surface of our everyday awareness. In many Eastern traditions, spiritual silence is seen as a path to enlightenment. The practice of mauna, or intentional silence in Hinduism, is a way to conserve energy and focus the mind on higher states of awareness. This silence is a form of meditation, where the practitioner disengages from verbal communication to explore the inner landscape. It is believed that in this silence, one can transcend the limitations of the physical world and touch the eternal. Similarly, in Christian mysticism, the practice of contemplative silence is a way to enter into communion with the divine. Saints and mystics have long used silence as a means to experience the presence of God, where time seems to stand still and the soul is lifted beyond the confines of the material world. St. John of the Cross, a Spanish mystic and poet, spoke of this silence as a dark night of the soul, where one is stripped of worldly distractions to encounter the divine directly. In silence, there is no past or future. There is only the present moment, which is eternal. Moreover, in the silence, we become attuned to the vibrations of the universe. The law of vibration, which underlies the law of attraction, teaches that everything in the universe is in constant motion, vibrating at different frequencies. When we cultivate silence, we can raise our own vibrational frequency to align with the higher energies of the cosmos. This alignment opens the door to new possibilities and deeper understanding, freeing us from the constraints that ordinarily bind us. The practice of spiritual silence is not about escaping reality, but about seeing reality more clearly. It's about shifting our perception from the transient to the eternal, from the material to the spiritual. In silence, we come to understand that time and space are constructs of the mind, tools that help us navigate the physical world, but are not the ultimate truth. By embracing silence, we unlock the potential to live in a state of timelessness, where the soul is free to explore the infinite possibilities of existence. But now that we've reached this point, you're probably wondering, what actually happens when we transcend time and space? What really changes in our lives? Are we transported into another universe, transcend time and space? Not exactly, because when we speak of transcending time and space, we are talking about a shift in consciousness that allows us to perceive reality in a new way. Consider the experience of being fully absorbed in a creative activity or a deep conversation. In those moments, time seems to disappear. Hours can pass in what feels like minutes, and we become so immersed in the present moment that the usual boundaries of time no longer apply. Similarly, when we meditate or enter a state of deep relaxation, our perception of space can shift. We might feel as though we are floating, expanding beyond the confines of our physical body, or merging with the environment around us. These experiences give us a glimpse of what it means to transcend time and space. This transcendence is not just about escaping the physical world, it is about expanding our awareness to include a broader, more holistic understanding of reality. By moving beyond the limitations of time and space, we can tap into a deeper level of consciousness where everything is interconnected. In this state, we are no longer isolated individuals, but part of a vast, unified whole. This awareness brings a sense of peace, clarity, and freedom that is difficult to achieve when we are confined by the usual constraints of time and space. Practically speaking, this transcendence can have a profound impact on our lives. When we are not bound by the usual limitations, we become more open to new possibilities and opportunities. We start to see the connections between seemingly unrelated events, and we gain a deeper understanding of the underlying patterns that shape our lives. This expanded awareness allows us to make decisions from a place of wisdom and intuition rather than fear or limitation. We become more patient and trusting. We no longer feel the need to rush or force things to happen according to our timetable. Instead, we learn to align ourselves with the natural rhythms of the universe, trusting that everything will unfold in its own perfect time. This sense of trust and surrender can lead to a more peaceful and fulfilling life, as we are no longer struggling against the flow of time, but moving in harmony with it. This new awareness can lead to a greater sense of compassion, empathy, and connection, as we recognize that we are all part of the same universal web of life. In essence, to transcend time and space is to step into a higher state of consciousness where the usual limitations no longer apply. It is a journey of expansion where we move beyond the narrow confines of our everyday experience and enter a realm of infinite possibilities. This transcendence is not just a lofty ideal, it is a practical goal that can profoundly change how we experience reality, leading to a life that is richer, more connected, and more deeply aligned with the true nature of existence. As we journey through the practices outlined by Patanjali, we find ourselves gradually shedding the layers of illusion that bind us to the constraints of time and space. Each practice, whether it is the ethical conduct of yamas, the disciplined focus of niyamas, the grounding of asanas, or the deep stillness of dhyana, serves as a step towards the ultimate liberation, kaivalya. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.